50% design stage at this point in time. The priority would be to make sure that, as John said, that the description and the specifications and also the details get changed so that it is that way.
And then,
While you still have the opportunity, because it's
yeah,
not finalized design.
hopefully, there's a little bit of savings without doing that concrete slab. I know it's peanuts, but it, you know, even if it's a couple $100 towards 80 wells, you're talking, you know, 20 grand,
Yeah,
16
that's
grand, it does add up.
Yeah.
Mark?
I got a quick question. I hate to assume, but I take it, I'm under the assumption that when they were weighing this out between cement and pea stone, that they also factored in the intensive labor part of the pea stone. If for some reason that got overlooked, you said that there is a number that they have, and anything over that, the town has to assume. If you did go with the pea stone and it ended up being 3 times more than what they expected, where would that money come from? Would the town still be on the hook for that? Or, because I think cheaper will be the cement myself, for the fact that, like they were saying, you're not gonna get trucks anywhere near to dump it. And now you gotta have guys with wheelbarrows or buckets, and to fill a 400-foot well, 5-gallon bucket at a time,
Yeah.
2 guys, one guy filling buckets and one guy dumping, is more than a day's worth of work.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
and that's once the pea stone's already down there. So, I mean, I don't know how they can say it's cheaper. I think, yeah, the cement is more expensive, cost cement versus the pea stone, but in the long run, I can't see how the pea stone is a cheaper way. I don't know, again, I'm assuming, but do they have the labor in there? Because I think it's gonna be a lot more money than what they're thinking.
I agree. Prevailing wages adds up quick, and then not everybody runs when they're on prevailing wages.
I mean, if you're talking, it could end up being a week per well, and you got 80 wells. Think of how much that is per $40 an hour, times 40 hours
Mm.
per well, times, you know, that's not including the pea stone.
They ain't saying what grade of concrete you gotta put in either.
No, but concrete, like they,
Concrete, you can put a lot to it and make it expensive, but you can put just regular concrete.
yeah, like they said, they can take a hose. It's no different than sucking out a septic, that a guy's got a septic, you know, way back behind his house. The truck doesn't have to get back there. They got
Right.
hoses, you run a hose out, there you go, you let it dump and off it goes. But man, I would not wanna be the guy with a wheelbarrow up and down, you know, hundreds of feet through, up and over, you know, whatever.
If they had a bunch set up, and they had a pump truck, they could go.
Yep.
Well,
And they
that,
may do it that
And
way.
look at, they do 10 stories, 20 stories, 100 stories for these, you know?
The well drillers have a trailer that mixes neat cement right there. They slurry it, and they have a pump on it, so it isn't a cement truck coming in.
No.
Most of them have, you know, the guys who are fishing at it just come in with a truck. They're mixing
Yeah.
in big cases, of, you know, I mean, pallets of the bags, and water, just doing it right there.
but I'm sure with the cement, they can also do several wells a day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Easily, compared to how many days is it gonna take just to do one well the other way.
Right.
I don't know, I just think cost-wise, I can't see the cement being more than the pea stone. I just can't. And if it is, it can't be by much, just because of the labor alone.
Well, we will see, but we've,
Something tells me it's not gonna be a month before our next meeting.
probably not. All right, any more discussion on this? Because if not, I'd like to move forward on the next line item. Okay, thank you, Chris, very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next we have, on here, on the new business, signing of the COC for septic systems before the well test. This has happened to me twice since our last meeting, and it's happened several times. Right now, Charlton, the COC stands for Certificate of Compliance. Okay, so right now, the way our regs read is, we will not issue a certificate of compliance for a septic system
To a well,
until the well water test is done.
right.
So what's happened is, the bottom line is, why? What does one have to do with the other? How are they related, and what's the correlation? Why are they related? So what ultimately happens is, you get a septic installer, they'll go in, they throw a septic system in, they've just shelled out all types of money for the septic system. Now, it's time to get paid for the septic work, and the banks or the builders or the homeowners aren't gonna release the funds without a certificate of compliance. That's kind of the goal on a septic build is, you build your septic, here's your certificate of compliance, okay, now you pay me, and that's how it all works. So what ultimately is happening is, and it's happened time and time and time again, is these septic guys are going out, doing the work, putting in the septic systems, and now the bank's not releasing funds, or they're not getting paid for their jobs because they're waiting on water results. And the two of them aren't related.
No, but they gotta have water to get the.
Build
water.
up.
Right, but they gotta have a perk too to get it.
That's
They got a
right.
perk.
Mhm.
But they ain't got the water, they can always put a holding tank or anything else over there for the
Mhm.
septic. But the water they gotta have, and they gotta be tested.
So the water has to be tested, and I can tell you right now, I know of 3 or 4 septic systems that are installed, and the house isn't built yet. They get the,
They got the well and the tested already,
they didn't test the well, they have the septic system.
Charlton?
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm supposed to do that.
It's quantity first, then quality before you sign it.
Right, they have the quantity of the water, the well's in.
But they gotta have the test too.
But I guess what I'm saying is, how does that affect the septic system, the certificate for getting a septic?
Well, as long as they got a perk,
Mhm.
they're gonna get a septic system in, no matter what.
And what we're talking about is, once they already put the septic system in,
They shouldn't do that until the well's in and get tested.
because what's happened is, like, they just did one, McKinstry Drive was one. What happened was, they put the septic in, everything's fine, Mally came out, inspected, everything's good, the septic's good to go, they hydro-seeded it, they put the straw on it, everything was fine. The guy he's got the foundation in, but he hasn't put the floor in, so they haven't done the water test yet, because they just haven't done the water test yet. And even if they did the water test, we're gonna make them put in a filtration
Right,
system and all
right,
that.
Right.
But there's no slab for them to put the filtration system in the cellar, none of that exists yet. But I can't see why, what the water test has to do with holding back on giving a certificate of compliance.
Not, it shouldn't, but we always did the well with the test first.
Well,
And
it's-
the perk.
it-
Perk's gotta be done first.
No, they do the perk first,
Yeah,
that happens, and then they install the well,
right.
and then they get enough water,
The quantity.
quantity of water. So, once the perk's done, they get an approved plan, they come in here, we give them a permit, they go install a septic system. Myself, I just can't see why we would hold back giving them a certificate of compliance for the septic system when the well test isn't done. Now, here's the thing, say they do the well test, and the well test comes back with gross alpha or anything in it that, arsenic or whatever. It's not like they got away with anything, because the certificate of compliance is not the final sign-off on the house. It's not an occupancy sign-off. So we still hold a signature page open before anybody can move into that house.
Right.
So what I'm talking about here is keeping the 2 items separate. So if a septic gets done, we can give the septic guy his paperwork and he can be on his merry way. And when the water test comes back, same as always, if it comes back with, anything positive, then we do what we've always done. I'm not talking about anything, but I don't see why one is holding back one on the other. That's twice now, because guy did one in Charlton, septic's done, he's trying to get his money, he's got thousands and thousands out on this job, and the builder's like, well, I'm not sure when I'm gonna do the well test. Well, that ain't right.
No.
What's the well test got to do with the sick? And then I got one right after, Jim.
And I think this is something Andrea and Andrea does a great job handling stuff. She said, Jim, why do we hold back on the COC? Because the contractors aren't getting paid, and if the builder, like you said, holds up before he can do anything, now all these
Months.
installers and stuff, they're not getting paid.
Yes.
And they're the ones coming in saying, hey, did they sign yet? Did they sign yet? Did they sign yet? So, like Matt said, Kurt only wants to see quantity to give him a building permit. You do a perk, whatever, he wants to see that there's enough quantity, not quality. Later, we're not gonna sign the building, the final building card
Occupancy.
until see the plumbing there, and then the water quality will come to us. And then we can decide whether they need a deed restriction for filtration, and we're not, until we sign, Kurt's not gonna let them be in there. So there are protections there.
That's
Right.
But if we're gonna facilitate and help the people in the community get paid a little more, I think that's unnecessary to wait till the very, very end, because that's what a lot of people come in complaining, I'd like to get paid, and we're the ones holding it up. But
Yeah.
basically, we're not, because the homeowner itself can decide that he got this far, and then they may not do anything.
And a lot of times, it's up to the banks. The banks
Yeah.
release in schedules, okay? You get your septic done, we give you X amount of dollars, you know, you get your well in,
Right.
and so the septic's done, it's been done, and now all of a sudden, the bank's like, well, where's your certificate of compliance? Well, they're waiting for the well test. Well, they're not gonna do the well test until they put the concrete floor in, they're gonna build the whole house, like, that might be towards the end of the project.
Right.
And it's not fair.
That's not fair.
No, and that's a lot of the questions we get, and we feel bad, and Andrea feels bad, and she brought it up, because she's very attentive to the people's needs that say, hey, why? And we have checks and balances to make sure that it's okay after.
It's not like all of a sudden they're gonna be able to be living in this house because we give them a COC, that's not the
No.
case. We still have a signature for the occupancy in the end. So I think that we should, my suggestion is that we do away with that rule that we have.
The regulation.
The regulation
for
that
the well
says that.
test prior to
Would
the
you have
signing
to
of
have
the
the
COC.
bank do it too?
Well, what would happen is if now all of a sudden the septic is installed, we give the installer the certificate of compliance if he meets it. Now he gives it to the bank can pay it.
And what if the bank says, no, I want the well too, so it ain't up to us no more.
Well, if the bank says he wants the well too, that's fine, but that hasn't been the case.
Oh, okay,
That doesn't seem to be the problem,
okay.
you know, because the septic's the big one, and that's the high ticket item. You're
Yeah.
talking 15 grand,
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, easily.
you know, and don't get me wrong, well filtration systems, those can be 10 grand, you know, so it's,
Right.
but they're just not, there's no reason one should hold up the other.
Correct.
So why
I
can't we
agree.
change that?
You can.
We can,
We can. Sounds like we're going to.
I think we should.
I think Matt's absolutely right. I think to facilitate and make, we're trying to be a more friendly office, and get people in here, get them going and keep things moving, that there'd be some happy people.
Mhm.
And it ain't gonna hurt nobody, because it's gonna be done after anyhow.
We have checks and balances in place, and I think we're looking and reviewing, Kim, the new employee, she's doing very, very well at catching on. That we're looking over all the paperwork and trying to streamline things that are unnecessary, and that's one of the unnecessary things that really holds up people. They do it for a living, they wanna get their money.
Sure.
It's only fair, so,
Yes.
I
you wanna,
know, that's what it is.
you wanna make a motion that we do away with that rule?
Yeah, so make a motion, we do away with having both the septic and the well done, one or the other, right? And, and change the rule.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I think for clarification, that we're doing away with that, we can sign the COC before the quality
Test.
is done, and the checks and balances for that are the building permit and the final, and we're gonna get those in before we sign it anyway. We have the plumber inspector sign off, he won't sign until we get the water quality test anyway.
That's right.
So,
So, yeah,
and we won't sign anything without Peter Starkis's signature on there.
right.
Still on here for tonight's discussion was the private well regulations. I think that if you actually read our well regulations, they need to be tightened up. Jim, you said that?
Yeah.
I think that, the board should really take a solid look at them and just, we've got chicken scratch handwritten on them. We just, you know, we know what they are. There's nothing really to them as far as the decommissioning, well, the decommissioning aspect is the one that's the hot topic right now, but.
Yeah, but we can clean those up and maybe present a copy for the board to review with an old copy, and the changes will be highlighted in red, and you can sign off on those sections that are changes, just to, because having a hint crossed out and just putting someone's name there.
That's what I'm saying, so like tonight we discussed getting rid of this, concrete slab on top.
Yep.
Right.
You know, I'd like to see a copy with that, eliminated. I'd like to see one that, says wells will be decommissioned with neat cement, from the bottom up.
Straightforward, clear cut, nothing,
Clear cut,
Yeah.
no,
I agree.
and then, cut 4 feet below ground surface,
Mhm.
backfilled with compaction on top. That's it. That's all about it. And, it's gonna be, detached from the existing dwelling.
Yes, and the pump would be pulled, of course.
Pump's pulled, yeah. So I think we just need to get that on paper, make sure that that is
We'll work
the
on that.
final.
We'll get it for the
Now, the
board.
homeowner has got the right to keep their pump, right?
Sure, the old pump that
So-
gets pulled? Oh, yeah.
You know, make
yeah.
sure,
It's
make
500
sure
for
they
the
got a
pump
right
and
to have
500
it
for the
first,
motor,
where you can
right?
get
Something
rid of
like
it,
that?
or.
It's expensive.
It
Because
is.
they're all working,
Yeah.
Last time I had
they
one.
can sell
Pump and motor about
That's
$1,000.
your possession, it's your property,
Right.
I don't.
it, but we don't
Yeah.
want somebody to go in there and grab it and take it away, and then they say, oh, where's my pump?
Well, did you guys get literature how that was gonna go? As far as the pumps? You assuming they're just gonna take it and be on your way? Be on their way?
I'm assuming I'm gonna get my pump.
You think you're gonna keep it?
I would
That's what I'm
wanna
assuming.
keep mine, not to say I'm gonna need it there, but down the road, if I have a second
No,
home or a summer
somebody needs
home
it.
and that
Yeah,
pump craps the bed, like you said, it's at least $1,000 to replace
Yeah.
it. I got a spare that I can throw
Yeah.
in.
Or you got a family member has a well,
that's
and he
right.
may get
Right.
struck by lightning and you can help him out.
It's a good thing that you brought up, because I was under the assumption that when they pull it, it's mine. I mean, technically, we paid for it.
they're not-
Absolutely.
So,
They'll take it away if you want them to, and that and all
they
affiliated.
can take all the black pipe and stuff,
Yeah.
I want the pump.
But the pump belongs-
and
So,
motor.
Jim, I know we have a 90% meeting coming up, 95% meeting, was it 90?
90.
90%.
Yes.
So can you, address that with the team that,
Sure.
Gets a
that the
contract.
pumps, we wanna make sure that the homeowner has the option to keep or, have the pumps discarded?
Absolutely.
Make that a line item that just it's said out loud in front of all the parties to be that the homeowners know they have the right to keep the pump if they would like it.
And I think this meeting is being filmed and stuff, and I think that, looking at those numbers and speaking to gentlemen in the hall and stuff, I think that, in the long run, it may be cheaper to do the cement in some cases than do the stone. So
Well-
I think when this is all hashed out in the end, I think it's all gonna work out for both sides.
Let's hope
And
so.
it'll be done right.
I can tell you that the fear of it being more expensive has been quite a topic of concern
Sure.
for me and you and
Me too, I
some of the other
feel-
parties involved.
I feel horrible, I'm just happy that the line's in, but certainly we have regulations, and I facilitate the needs of the board, and if this is what, like you said, it's not who it is, it's what it is. And I think on part of that, and I'm not making any excuses about that, but when you're sitting there and he brings that up in a meeting, and then it becomes part of it, it's not like you approved it, it's discussion, and then it becomes, and I think Robin did a really good job, and I know that they mentioned about, but Robin worked her butt off trying to get this and facilitate this, so I think she had the best interest of the residents in here, and as I did, so.
I'm sure, and as on any contract, there's always gonna be a bump in the road or
Sure,
something that was overlooked,
Sure.
you know, and
How
I,
does she know? She doesn't know all the regulations
Yeah,
with all the
you know-
departments.
Well, it was just brought up, it wasn't like I was sitting here with the regulations
I
in front of me.
know, I know, you either, so.
And, you know, it wasn't, and I think the state on their behalf are trying to step forward, brought $5 million for it, and I don't think the sport's trying to facilitate any excess pay on taxpayers, but I think in the long run, we're looking at, you know, public health, safety, and the environment on all these issues.
I don't feel, from a financial point of view, that other parties involved think it's gonna be cheaper for the cement, and that's the battle that I've been trying to explain for the last few days.
That it will be cheaper, you said?
that it will not. They feel as though if the
Yeah.
board votes
I got
on the cement, that the town of Charlton's gonna have to spend
Well, just
$500.
speaking to the gentleman, Mr. Sylvester, and the gentleman, which I forget his name from,
Pete.
Charlton, Pete, they said they wouldn't bid on stone, they won't do it, because they have some kind of responsibility, so they wouldn't even give a quote for stone.
Mm.
So, you know, I certainly, I hope this will all, and I think at that 90% meeting, we can direct things, and I know there's overcost, but remember, this is a competitive bid, and I think that in the end, that this will all work out.
I think it will work out too. You know,
Hope so.
just a little hot seat.
Right there.
Well,
Let's keep it
that's
right
good.
there.
You know.
But right is right, wrong is wrong.
So I think, back on track here, I think we need to, just tighten up the well regs.
I'll work on it.
Certainly the decommission of it, get that black and white. And I know there's other well regs in there that we really need to, talk about. One of them is, protocol for testing. When you test, when you don't have to test. There's a rule in there, John, I know you've been here for this already. If your gross alpha is, an exceedance, they automatically make you test for 226, 228 uranium. And the way the board has felt in the past and the way that we have done it is, if you go in with a deeded filtration system, we allow you to test the water after the filtration system is in, instead of before the filtration system is in, because ultimately what happens is you're testing several times for a moot point, because if your uranium comes back at an elevated level and they say you need to put a filtration system in, some of these contractors are already putting the filtration system in first, so let's spend the money on the filtration system, let's not spend the money on the testing, assuming we're gonna have to get it. So I just think we need to tighten that one up a little bit more black and white, just so it's, you know, it's part of our normal, you know, protocol.
It's been a discussion for a long time.
It's been a discussion, and it's still, as many times as we've talked about it, right now it's a variance, it just needs to be the way it is, so. I know we wanna look at that.
And the homeowners should know too, they should have a thing to change the filters regular. And the average one don't know nothing about it.
Yep, you're right.
They let it go for years.
Yeah.
Well, every time we talk about water, you know, we always wanna recommend homeowners should definitely, if they have filtration systems, go by your recommended manufacturers, recommended changing of the filters, whether it's every year, every 6 months, whatever your system may be, it's very important to change it, because those filters could actually hold contaminants and make it a stronger contamination that you potentially drink in. And if you're a homeowner and you haven't had your water tested in a long time, the Board of Health certainly recommends that you test that water, especially if you're drinking it or your family's drinking it. Very important. Town of Charlton's got water issues left and right, and hopefully everybody's drinking safe water. So, Jeff?
And that's what the WPI students that worked so hard on the project, that's something they stress in their video that's still online for them to look at. And the Board of Health strongly recommends that you change your filters out in a certain period. And that was part of the informational program that WPI did, so.
And we've set it up 100 times, but even still, it's, you might have tested your water 2 years ago and everything was clean, and you test your water today and it might not be as clean, or vice versa. So the water flow is always changing. It's very important to, especially if you're drinking that water, it's very important to know what you're drinking.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion on the private well regs? I'd like to make that for a line item on our next Board of Health meeting, so we can get that done. Moving on then, Jim, I know you have some department head reports that you'd like to talk about, so if you wanna take over?
My name is Chairman. The big thing is, we are mandated to do some testing for our landfills in Charlton here, which are 90 and 54 Flint Road. We are currently, our landfill count is at $200. The last bills we sent to Robin, and Robin took care of them. But I spoke with Gary today, I did speak to Matt briefly about it. We can't expect someone to do services and without having money to appropriate. So I think this is the time that we have to go before we're doing budgets. So I did my budget. This is not this is a separate budget, but certainly a very important item that the estimated cost that we're looking at are quite substantial. So we're looking at almost, we've got 26,000 for 90 to get through fiscal 2018, 31,730 is an estimated cost for 54, and then we have to get into fiscal year 2019, which would be another 21,000. Well, this is the waste site cleanup. This is actually for Robin. That's part of the town's portion of it, but that could be cut off. But we still don't have any money to do the mandated DEP requirements for testing at our well.
So let me get this straight. For the two landfills, 90 Flint Road and the 54 Flint Road, we're looking somewhere around $58,000, $59,000
Yeah, for just the 2018.
for 2018, okay.
Yeah. And we have to figure in the cost of mowing also.
That's in there.
Yeah, and that's the 5,000, that was erosion repair mowing that I added in there.
Yep.
So this comes out, but this is something that is gonna have to go before we need to have appropriation of this, because like I said, at one point we had money in our accounts, but it's slowly getting eaten away, and it's down to the point where we don't have any more money for it.
So just so this board knows, and I'm sure you do, when this landfill, specifically 90 Flint Road, was uncapped, we had money in a FAM. We had $1 million something in there, was it?
Yeah, at one point it's about $1 million.
About $1 million in there. So, as we have come into compliance with state regulations, we've been chipping away at that money. So this is not a new expense that these landfills are creating. We've had money allocated towards them, but now that money has been depleted, and now it's needs to
We
happen.
go to a town meeting now for that, or we just go to the selectmen?
I think
I mean,
I think we're going to want to appropriate it at a town meeting.
I think this is